When we're talking about housing, the housing crisis that we're talking about really, I mean this is a crisis, isn't it, that affects people's lives in so many different ways. And as I talking to pastors, ministers, vicars across London, there's no community that is not affected by this housing crisis. And there's no person that's not affected. It affects people on all sorts of different levels. We're talking about people who on one level are homeless, who have literally no home, nowhere to call their own, or other people who live with all sorts of levels of housing insecurity. And then we've got other people who perhaps have built their aspirations around a model of housing, the notion that they have their own home, they expect their children to have their own home in due course, and many of those aspirations now are falling apart. And all sorts of people in between with problems, with fears around housing. And so it's a real challenge, I think. It's a pastoral challenge actually for the churches. And how do we respond? How do we encourage people to talk about these issues together, to support one another? How do we encourage people to maybe, as Christians, take some responsibility for the housing crisis that we have? How can people play a part? And how can we together try to speak a language and to find solutions and actions which really speak into a problem that's at the heart of the crisis within our capital city? Well, I think certainly one of the things we can be doing as churches is that we can recognise that we have a role in neighbourhoods and in communities, and that we can be people who bring people together. We can try to understand how the different changes that are taking place in the housing situation are affecting people within our communities. We can maybe help people who've moved into a community to understand that there are others in the community who feel vulnerable and feel they may have to move out of the community. And what does that do to our congregational life, our common life together? So I think that's a really important thing we can do. I think we can actually have conversations within our congregations around what does housing mean for us. Let's open up the conversation among people. What does housing mean for us? And how do we have a response together? That could be helping homeless people. That could be being part of the local night shelter. That could be being involved in things like the Citizens Campaign for community land trusts. It could be about getting the church authorities to maybe release a piece of land for a bit of housing development. I think there's a whole range of things potentially that the churches can do. I think the first thing is let's open up housing as a conversation topic, and let's learn together about what it means to us, what our fears and aspirations are, and how we can try to act together as Christians to try and play a role.